Hi, welcome to the Fourth Watch podcast. My name is Elena and I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today. So, the whole point of this podcast is to have a conversation. I want to talk about things that interest me, things that I like, things that I find funny, things that I think about, just about the world in general, my experiences. So I thought, why not make a podcast? When I was really young, so maybe let's say I was a teenager, so I grew up watching anime with my brothers, right? So it was my brothers, myself, we used to watch this anime called Dragon Ball Z, and in our little community, a lot of us liked it, so we all watched it together. We used to try and create the Kamehameha wave and stuff like that. And then I moved to Canada, and I didn't really know a lot of people, so I grew up in the Caribbean, and basically there we had two television stations. I don't remember what they're called anymore, but basically what they would do is they'd kind of like pay for a subscription from an American TV station, and then they would kind of like hotlink it, I guess, and just broadcast it over the Caribbean station. So it would just be random things would be played. Sometimes it would be like WWF, but I think it's called WWE, or one of the names got switched around at now, so the name is a little bit different. Or it would be, so like for example, WWF used to be is it Wildlife? I know the name got switched, I'm just trying to remember, but anyway, so that in the, like here in Canada, that would be something that you would get as pay-per-view. But like for example in my country, that's something that you could just see, like it would just play, I guess they would just pay for it, I guess, and just play it on television. So for we would also see anime. So in my, because everybody only watched the same things, we all knew it. So when I came here to Canada, of course there's a million stations, or you could get a different TV package. So not everybody would like the same things that you would like. So when I came here, I went to school, and I didn't meet a lot of people who also liked anime, and it was kind of seen as like a geeky thing. So this is just an example. And then and my family, we didn't really have a computer. So back in those days, I went to high school. It was around 2006, I believe. And I remember when I was in school, we have a class in the library studies or something like that. I think that was the name. So the class basically I remember going there in the librarian, because the class would take place in the library. That was where the school had the computers, and I remember the computers were those blocky things. You know the computers that you know the white ones that had the block, like the heavy ones, not like the flat screen computers that we have today. And the teacher would be like teaching us how to type and how to go on this thing called Google. It's this thing that you can use, or we would go to Ask Jeeves. Some of you young people wouldn't even know what that is. So it was back in those days. So a computer was so expensive that I wouldn't have been able to afford one. My family, like where I lived in Canada, it was just not a priority. So if I had to use a computer, I would go to the public library. I lived in Toronto. Actually, when I went to high school, I lived in a city called Mississauga, which is just outside of Toronto. It's about 2 hours outside of Toronto, and right outside of just like about, I'd say 10-15 minutes walk from my house, was a small public library, which I knew the librarians. I knew them very well. Like they knew me by heart because I spent a lot of time there because I love reading. But if I wanted to do like, so if I had to do some real research, I would have to go to this place called Square One, and that's where they had like the big Mississauga library, and it also had like I think there was like it's been a while since I've been there, but it had like this part that was connected to it. I haven't been there in so long, so I can't quite remember, but I used to go there to do like the research at Square One, the big reference library there. So the point I'm making is that I did not have a computer. So imagine I have this interest in my high school. My friends they were not really into anime. Maybe some would watch like Sailor Moon, maybe, because Sailor Moon was really mainstream. I didn't even know what anime was, if I'm to be honest. I knew it was different than like Western cartoons. So I have a point, I promise. But eventually I was able to so I got a job when I was the tail end of 17, and I saved up for a computer. I think I was able to save up when I reached 18. So that was when I got my first computer. I was 18, and I remember how much this computer cost me. It was $1,185. I went to Future Shop. It was so there were these two major electronic companies in Canada, Best Buy and Future Shop. Now I believe Best Buy is an American company, and Future Shop was the Canadian like version of that. Unfortunately, Best Buy bought out Future Shop, so that's just the way it goes, of course. But I remember going there, and it was all the money that I had saved. And would you believe the computer was like, it had, I believe, 256 megabytes of RAM, which that is like nothing. That's like trash. That's like a trash computer. But I spent that was how expensive those computers were back in the day. Of course, I could have just been ripped off by Future Shop. Maybe because, you know, those big box stores, they tend to sell like crappy computers for way more, and I probably could have, but I didn't have a computer to look up or do research on anyway, and I was new to looking for computers, so I didn't know any better. So I'm pretty sure they probably ripped me off, and I probably could have gotten a better computer. Like, I remember the second computer I got it at a second-hand shop, and like an idiot, I went in there. It was like this shop with these two, I think they were Indian men, and you know how Indian men like to haggle. And like an idiot, I immediately said, I don't know anything about computers. And the two of them immediately started to speak in their own language. And in my head, I was like, why did you say that? Because I knew for sure they ripped me off. But again, I didn't do any research. So anyway, I'm going on a tangent. But the point I'm trying to make is that when I finally bought that computer, and then of course I paid for my own internet as well, because I lived with my great aunt, and she didn't really need that. She was retired in her 70s, 80s. She was happy watching soap operas and living her twilight years in her life. She didn't need any of that. Even when I got internet, she never needed any of it. She never used it. So the internet was all for me. So I remember paying for internet, and then I went online for the first time. I had this blocky, big, chunky computer, just like the one that I had at school, in my room. And then I went online, and boom, the world opened up. I found communities. So there is this forum called, I don't think they exist anymore, at least they don't exist the same way that they used to. They were called Envision Free, and y'all don't know what it was like back in those days. It was a lot of fun. We don't have stuff like that anymore, it's really sad. The creation of Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that, I don't know, it just got rid of a lot of fun little sites on the internet. So there was this community forum, so anybody could create a free forum. Obviously it was riddled with ads, but that's fine. That's the price you pay for a free free forum, so you could create a forum where you could do anything. It could be a forum about whatever interests you had. So maybe you're interested in like baseball, or you're interested in like Dungeons and Dragons, or whatever. I was interested in anime, and so I went on to Envision Free, and I found first. No, that's not how it is. My friend had I don't know if they owned the forum or they were just moderators, or like they were really high up on this forum that did Naruto role playing. So it was like this whole community of Naruto RPGs, and it was like a text based. So basically you'd be like you make a character and you're in the Leaf Village and or whatever, and then you register, and then let's say let's say your name is, I don't know, Mizuki. I don't know. Mizuki walked into the sauna, and I don't know. And then somebody else will join and will be like, oh, Mizuki's best friend from 20 years ago, Haruna, had planned to go to the sauna on her own, and she was really surprised that Mizuki was also in the sauna, and she said, hi Mizuki, and then Mizuki would answer in another reply, oh hi, how whatever, you know, it and then you could just go. The moderators would have like events, and then you'd have like battles, and there would be like an overarching story. I remember creating, so the whole point is that I'm going on a whole tangent, but the point was that when I bought my own computer, I was able to find a whole community of people who had the same interests. I even made my own forum of role playing, and it was a lot of fun. I met a whole lot of people, and the only reason I stopped role playing is because, unfortunately, I got caught up in an MMORPG, and it wasn't even like a great one. It's so embarrassing to say, but I got caught up in MapleStory. MapleStory took over my life for a while there. Oh my god, it took over my life for a while there. And it wasn't even in the time when it was like it is now, where you can just like get to 200 in like a day, level 200 in like a day. It was in a time when you had to like grind, you had to like work to get to level 10 in like a week or something. It was hard. They didn't even have like, and this will make no sense to anybody, but like they didn't even have third job at the time, and it took over my life. But I had so much fun there that I forgot about role playing. But again, it had that anime aesthetic, which is why I got into MapleStory. And even up to today, sometimes I'll still find myself going there, but the problem is that I'm very impatient. So it's supposed to be a free to play, and I'm using air quotes, but I end up spending money there, and it becomes a play to win for me, or a pay to win for me. So I try my best not to go on that game, and plus they kind of like ruin the game for me anyway, so it's not important. The point is that I'm hoping that the podcast will become something like that again, where I will meet and talk to people who have similar interests, the same way how getting the internet and my new computer for the first time got me to meet all these amazing people that I got to role play with, and I got to talk to about anime, and I got my world changed because I got to read manga. I got to watch a lot of the anime before anime in the West was even a thing. I was part of that whole community when we used to like, the thing I like. So the reason I had to buy that new computer, the secondhand computer from those two guys at the secondhand shop, is because back in those days, watching anime was part of the wild west. You had to like go onto sites and download and torrent, and you never knew what you would get. And I got so many viruses on my computer just because I thought it was worth it, because I needed to watch anime. And when your world opens up, because when you watch Dragon Ball Z and you watch Cardcaptor Sakura, and then you watch Sailor Moon, Hair in the West, and you know something's different about those shows. And again, this is not an anime podcast, by the way. I'm just talking about it because that's what I feel like it's a good analogy for what the podcast is about. When you watch these shows, you know there's something different about them, because the art style is different, the storytelling is different, and then when you find out why they're different, you get to experience that there is a myriad of other shows similar to those. And it was like a buffet, but the problem with a buffet is, there's so much you want to eat when you're hungry, but then when you start eating, then you don't know what to eat. You eat too much, and so there was a lot. But to be fair, I started watching all of these shows when I was 17, 18. So I found out about these shows when I was 17, 18, but I still, up to today, I'm still big, not as big because I don't go to conventions anymore. I don't find them as interesting as I used to. So anyway, so some of the things that I would like to talk about on the podcast, obviously, my interests: anime, music, art, movies, games, life events, things that have happened, some funny stories, some crazy stories, some sad stories, some happy stories. I want to also talk about serious topics. I will obviously give a warning when we talk about these serious topics like racism, sexism, the pandemic, religion. I want to talk about it all. So my goal is I want to have a weekly podcast. My goal is to have a 4-week cycle. So 3 of the podcasts will be, lighter topics. I want to do things like tier list, brackets. I want to do 3x3s, things like that. I want to have story times. I want to talk about I like these what do you call them, conspiracy theories. I want to talk about them and just explore them and see how far I can go with just asking questions about why people have these kind of thoughts. But on the 4th week, I want to have a serious topic. So if people are not interested in those kind of serious topics, that's perfectly fine. Because you know what? Life is not all just happy times and fun topics. I want to talk about the serious things too. And I will obviously give a trigger warning when I talk about those things. And I hope everybody understands that they are my views, and I welcome every other person's view as well. I want to hear those because I don't want to live in a bubble, and I don't believe that people grow when they stay in a bubble. But I just ask that anybody who wants to have a conversation be willing to hear my side too, because I want to hear yours. I want to listen. I want to see your perspective. It is really it's hard to try to see outside of your own beliefs. It's a very hard thing to do, which is why we have so many issues in our world right now. A lot of people, we're not wired to be able to believe that we could be wrong, even though we are wrong all the time. And even if it's just a perspective thing, we are wrong all the time. It's not possible or realistic to be right 100% of the time. But most people don't entertain the idea that, in fact, sometimes they can be wrong. So I'm hoping that when we have these serious topics, the people who come into this podcast will be the kind of people who are open to the ideas of trying to see a different perspective, of trying to open their minds to other avenues of thoughts, because I want to see what other, even if I don't necessarily think the person's thoughts are right, I still want to hear it and see where they're coming from, because people don't just come to a thought. They don't just come to an area. Like, you don't just say, this is why what I believe, and that's it. Something happens that makes a person believe the things that they believe, and I always want to know where that thought process comes from. What life experiences led to them believing this thing so strongly. And it is a matter of life experience. And I find it fascinating how different a person's beliefs and thoughts and just everything can be, just because of how different their life experiences are or have been. So that's why I thought so hard to myself, do I really want to do the serious topics? Maybe I can just shy away, because we're living in such tense times right now. People are so quick to cancel each other. People are so quick to attack each other, and it's almost like they're excited about the idea to do things like that. Even when I do agree that sometimes the person who is getting all the negative attention, they're in the wrong, or their perspective is not 100% correct. I sometimes think that sometimes we go, like the mob goes at it almost like a swarm, like a hungry swarm, like they're so excited, so just ready to, like, I don't know, it just, sometimes I think we were too excited to cancel. But still, I still want to do it, and let's see what happens. Maybe it will go well. Maybe I'll decide after all that it's probably not worth it. But yeah, this is what I want the podcast to be about. I just want to comfortably have a conversation and then read the comments, answer the comments, and maybe I'm just too optimistic. Maybe it will not be as rose-colored as I imagine it to be, and in fact I'm sure it will not be. Things are never as you think they will be, but I'm looking forward to it. Who knows, maybe this will be one of those poorly aged things. But we'll see what happens. If this is something that interests you, then please take some time to subscribe. My goal is that the podcast will happen every Monday. I have a lot to talk about. So I don't anticipate that it will be something that I won't put out for a long time. I have a lot of I've brainstormed a lot of topic ideas, and at the very least for the next year I have a lot of topic ideas. If you're interested, please take the time to subscribe. Please hit the like button, and I think that's about it for today. I guess I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.